Somewhere in your life, there is something you cannot stop. Maybe it is your phone, maybe it is sugar, maybe it is a person, or a feeling, or a habit that you have tried to quit 100 times and somehow always end up back at the beginning. And if you have ever asked yourself why you keep going back, why knowing something is bad for you is never quite enough to stop, why the part of your brain that understands the problem seems completely powerless against the part that wants it anyway, the answer is older than you think. Much older, because addiction is not a modern invention. It is not a product of smartphones or fast food or social media. The machinery that makes humans vulnerable to addiction has been inside us for hundreds of thousands of years. And here is the part that changes everything. That same machinery, the exact same biological system that makes addiction possible, is also the reason humans built civilization. The most destructive force in modern human life and the most creative force in human history come from exactly the same place inside your brain. And understanding where that place is and why it exists might be the most important thing you ever learn about yourself. Before we go back to the ancient world, you need to understand what addiction actually is, because most people think addiction is about weakness, about poor choices, about character flaws. It isn't. Addiction is what happens when a survival system gets pointed at the wrong target. Here is how it works. Deep inside your brain is a system called the reward pathway. It is ancient, far older than the thinking parts of your brain, far older than language or reason or self-control. Its job is simple. When you do something that helps you survive, eat food, drink water, connect with another person, have sex, it releases a chemical called dopamine. Dopamine does not make you feel pleasure exactly. That is a common misunderstanding. What dopamine actually does is make you want. It creates intense motivation and craving directed at whatever just triggered it. It tells your brain, whatever you just did, do it again. Remember where it came from. Go back. Prioritize it above everything else. This system is brilliant for survival. When food is scarce, the dopamine response to finding it keeps you motivated to search. When human connection means survival, the dopamine response to companionship keeps you seeking your tribe. For hundreds of thousands of years, this system worked perfectly, because the only things that triggered strong dopamine responses were things that genuinely helped humans survive. And then something went wrong. Here is where the story gets uncomfortable. The human reward system was designed for a specific environment, a world where sugar was rare and precious, found only in seasonal fruit, a world where social approval meant survival within a small, tight group, a world where novelty and stimulation were limited by the pace of nature itself. That world no longer exists, and the reward system inside your brain has not caught up. Modern life is essentially a series of superstimuli, things that trigger your ancient reward system far more powerfully than anything it was ever designed to handle. A single chocolate bar contains more sugar than a prehistoric human might encounter in weeks. A social media notification triggers the same social approval circuitry that evolved to monitor your standing in a tribe of 50 people, but now it fires hundreds of times a day. A video game provides novelty, achievement, and social connection in a package so perfectly engineered to trigger dopamine that nothing in nature comes close. Your ancient brain cannot tell the difference between real survival rewards and engineered ones. It only knows the dopamine signal, and when something triggers dopamine strongly enough, the brain begins to reorganize itself around that thing. Synaptic pathways strengthen. The thing becomes easier to think about and harder to ignore. The brain begins to treat it the way it would treat food or water, as something necessary. And here is the cruel part. Over time, the brain adapts. It reduces its own dopamine sensitivity to compensate for the constant overstimulation, which means you need more of the thing just to feel normal, and without it, you feel worse than you did before you started. This is not weakness. This is your ancient survival brain doing exactly what it was designed to do, in an environment it was never designed for. Now here's the question that changes everything. If the dopamine reward system exists in other animals too, and it does, almost every vertebrate has one, why don't other animals get addicted the way humans do? The answer is fascinating and slightly humbling. Other animals do show addictive behavior when exposed to drugs in laboratory settings. Rats will press a lever thousands of times for cocaine. Monkeys will choose alcohol over food. So the basic vulnerability exists across many species. But in the wild, in their natural environment, other animals almost never encounter superstimuli powerful enough to hijack their reward systems. A wolf does not have access to engineered food designed to be more rewarding than anything in nature. A chimpanzee is not carrying a device that delivers social approval signals hundreds of times per day. Humans are the only animal that builds its own superstimuli, And this is the crucial difference. Human intelligence, the same intelligence that built cities and invented medicine and created art, also has the unique ability to engineer the exact stimuli that exploit our own reward systems most effectively. We are smart enough to build the trap, and ancient enough to fall into it. But there is something even more interesting hiding underneath all of this. Here is what nobody talks about when they talk about addiction. The same dopamine system that makes humans vulnerable to addiction is also responsible for every extraordinary thing humans have ever done. The obsessive drive that keeps an addict going back to the thing that is destroying them, that same drive, pointed at the right target, is what kept early humans searching for solutions when the hunt failed. What kept ancient inventors working on a problem for years without giving up? What kept artists creating, scientists experimenting, builders building? Dopamine does not care what it is pointed at. It only knows intensity. It only knows this matters. Keep going. Do not stop. Every human achievement that required years of obsessive focus, every scientific discovery, every great work of art, every civilization built stone by stone was powered by the same biological engine that powers addiction. The people history calls visionaries, the ones who could not stop working on their idea even when it cost them everything, were running the same neurological program as someone who cannot stop going back to the thing they know is hurting them. The difference was not the machinery, it was the target. This is why some researchers now believe that the human capacity for addiction and the human capacity for genius are not opposites. They are the same thing, the same intensity, the same obsession, the same inability to stop, just aimed in different directions. There is a cave painting in France called The Shaft of the Dead Man. It is roughly 17,000 years old. A prehistoric human climbed deep underground past chambers of magnificent animal paintings and painted a single image in the deepest, darkest part of the cave, where almost no one would ever see it. We do not know why. We do not know what drove them down there. We do not know what they were looking for or what they found. But we know they could not stop. Something inside them pulled them deeper, past reason, past comfort, past the point where most people would have turned back. That pull, that irrational, unstoppable, slightly dangerous compulsion towards something, is the oldest thing inside you. It built the first tools. It painted the first paintings. It drove humans across frozen continents into unknown worlds. And yes, in the wrong environment, pointed at the wrong things, it also destroys lives. But it was never a flaw. It was the engine. And the next time you feel that pull towards something that matters, towards something that lights up the oldest part of your brain, towards something you cannot quite explain but cannot quite stop, maybe that is not something to be ashamed of. Maybe that is the most human thing about you.